Good evening, and a very warm welcome to you all out there. This is Open Door Show from Property CEO. My name is Richie Clapson. You probably know that because it says it in the box. And of course, I'm here with the other half of Property CEO, Mr. Ian Child. Do you want to say good evening?
Good evening, everybody. You probably tell who I am as well, because my name's in the box.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. And over the next 45 minutes, well, we're going to be taking a deep dive, as always, into the world of small-scale property development. Isn't that right, Ian?
It certainly is. We're going to be covering some of the latest news items and also talking to some of the movers and shakers out there who can give us a bit of an inside track on what's happening in the world of property. Also going to be shining the spotlight on any areas that we think could be a good opportunity for new developers to take a look at.
That's right. But above all, come on, you know what we're here for. We're here to have a bit of fun. I mean, it's Thursday evening. Why shouldn't we be? And some of you may notice that I'm not sporting a property CEO background. That's because I'm not here. You know, I'm not in the studio. I'm away. I'm down in the West Country. I'm in North Devon. I'm in the cottage with the family. But I still want to spend time with you on Open Door. How about that? Look, the family's all been banished upstairs to the sitting room. I'm down here in the dining room, and I'm going to be doing the Open Door Show. So I've got to wait for my supper because I'm doing that. What dedication to a cause, isn't it, Ian?
Yeah, you're making me feel guilty now because I didn't join the Open Door Show when I was on my fishing trip. But there we go. I think you've
it's up to you.
You've set the bar quite high.
So it's all about having a bit of fun. I'm going to have a bit of fun tonight. I'm sure you do, but we need you to join in. So as always, please put your questions, comments in the chat box. If we don't have it in the chat box, obviously we're not going to go anywhere. Tonight, Ian, what's it all about? What are we going to be doing?
Well, tonight, Matthew, it's all about the well-publicised materials shortage and how we think that property developers are likely to be affected. So there have been lots of news stories about the shortages of construction materials caused by, well, no end of things. Global pandemic, Brexit, what else was there? Delivery drivers, shortage of delivery drivers. Oh, and the blockage of the Suez Canal. But of course, key question, what does that mean for developers, both new developers as well as those who've got projects kind of on the go at the moment? Should they all be concerned? And of course, how long are we going to have to wait until things get back to normal? And come to think of it, who is really driving the ship that blocked the Suez Canal? I'm pretty sure I saw them trying to reverse out of our car park today, made a right haulix of it. But anyway, all of these questions, and I'm sure many more, are going to be answered by Mr. Clapson on tonight's show.
Well, we shall see. I think we're both going to give it a go answering questions, but let's see who's on this evening. So Patricia's on, AJ's on, Sheriff's on, Mansour's on. Hello, Mansour. Damien's on. Good evening, Damien. Good evening, Dan. He's on as well. Roma's on, #1 fan there. You can be #1 fan if you want, but you're going to have to work quite hard to beat Roma, that's for sure. Roma and Richard, they come as a duo, you know. Mark's on, Rory's on. Hello, Rory, good evening to you. Thomas is on, Razwan's on, Ramika's on, John's on, Claire's on, Jackie's on, Mike's on, Gabrielle and Stephen, Paul, Liam, and Adair, to name but a few, are all on this evening. Hi, guys, says Rory. Oh, hi, Rory. Oh, hi. Good evening, gents, says Dan. Hello, says Jackie. Nice to see you here this evening. Paul says, love your backdrop. That's my backdrop, I'm assuming, not yours, Ian, because my backdrop is different. Hi, guys. Good to see you both, says Thomas as well. A very warm welcome this evening. Okay, good stuff. Well, look, before we start, Ian, have we got any news items? Get a little bit of an update of the news for everyone.
We have. We've got a few bits and pieces. Obviously, the big news really that's been going on this week is the Tory party conference. And the PM has been speaking out against greenfield house building in the overheated southeast. So basically, yeah, he's been spoken out against the building of new homes on greenfields and in England's overheating southeast in his conference speech, and instead indicated a preference for beautiful homes on brownfield sites. And then, of course, we had Michael Gove last week appointed as the new housing secretary, and he made a speech as well and said, we referred to urban regeneration and building homes on neglected brownfield sites will be a priority for the government's levelling up agenda. However, neither of them actually sort of mentioned the planning reform that was in the offing, a bit of the elephant in the room. But interesting, lots of sort of arguments for and against in terms of what's happening with planning reform, but a very strong message from the PM and the Housing Secretary about, yeah, the focus is going to be on regeneration and, yeah, presumably then permitted development and obviously getting all of those non-residential buildings that are currently derelict into and not being used into residential. there was a kind of follow-up to that, a lot of speculation actually as to what was going to happen when Gove finally gets round to sorting out the housing side. He's sort of on the levelling up side at the moment. The smart money's on perhaps January. He'll get round to tackling housing. And basically, the Telegraph was saying that, that they've had the clearest signal yet of the abandonment of the government's manifesto promise of overhauling the planning system. Went on to say that the newspaper understands the most contentious aspects of the proposed planning changes have effectively been ditched. So basically, bit of a vote loser in the Tory heartlands, and so they're even thinking about revising their manifesto target to build 300,000 new homes a year, which has been a manifesto target since, well, I think since I was born. So that's going to be quite interesting. So I think we're going to have to wait and see what comes of it. And then out of politics and just into the market in general, there was a report from Halifax. Basically, house prices registered the strongest monthly rise for 14 years in September. So the average cost of a pad is now it's up by 1.7% in September to £267,000.
Come on, get a grip.
Get the teeth in. So yeah, there was a 3-month decline, and now it's kind of jumped up again. So what on earth is going on? It's all over the place with house prices, but I suspect it may continue for a while. So there you go. There's a bit of news.
Good stuff. I saw Patricia just put her hand up. Why don't you all give us put your hands up? Give us a wave. Let us know you can hear and see us. It's always nice to actually know you're out there, and our hands are going up. That's great. Good. Oh, blimey, look, hang on a minute. What's the time? It's 9 minutes past 7 and Paul's just joined. Paul, disgrace on you. What's the matter with you, my friend? It's 9 minutes past 9. We start at 7 or maybe 1 or 2 minutes past. You've missed the news. You've missed Ian babbling on a bit. Anyway, now you've got a chance to listen to me. Shall I talk about material shortage, Ian?
Oh, why not? Go on then.
Okay. Let's talk about material shortage. Let me just sort of go off on a bit of a rant and talk about it a little bit, hopefully to maybe put your minds at rest, because the big question is, how are developers effective? Well, look, we had the first wave of lockdown, 2020, massive slowdown of production of materials, across the UK, across Europe. So that happened. Lots of shortages. I mean, lots of people talking about steel, timber, paints, glues, everything. Pretty much everything is supposedly in short supply. What happened then? Look, well, of course, the supply chains are struggling to keep up, and we had a massive spike, and demand was way above initial lockdown levels. I think in June 2021, I read some stat somewhere that construction production, and that's difficult to say, that is construction production in the UK hit its highest point in 24 years. It's this spike, it's this momentum. So you had this lockdown, and then of course you had this massive spike of everyone wanting everything to try and catch up. Okay, so just think of that. We've got to think of it's really what's going on and be a bit realistic. I don't buy into all the hype that comes behind a lot of this stuff. I think in a way, yeah, there are people saying out there it's difficult to have certainty a couple of months ahead, and the whole industry is a little bit unclear of what is going to happen. And that's probably right to a certain extent. But, I don't think it's often been much different to that. We've often had supply shortages, bricks, plasterboard. It's not the first time. It's not the first time we've had a run on plasterboard and all the builders run out with their transit pickups and pick up as much plasterboard as they can. Same as you lot. I bet you all went out and filled your cars up with fuel. You did, didn't you? You probably did. My parents in their 80s, bless them. I said to my son, I bet they have. And I spoke to my mother and she said, oh, it's okay. She said, Dad took both cars out and they're all filled up. We're good for a couple of months. Oh, God, it's embarrassing, isn't it? You shouldn't be doing that, okay? But the same thing happens in the construction industry. There's a run on materials. So this sort of difficulty has always been there. And of course, labor in a way is similar. Now, I guess if we talk about labor, the UK construction industry, you won't be surprised, has relied on a lot of migrant labor from Europe. It always has done. And many of those were forced to go home. Some aren't allowed back. I mean, some were never allowed in the first place, but they used to, if you drive around London or Manchester or Birmingham, and they used to be picked up on a street corner and didn't have any ID or anything. But, that went on in the industry. Not really good, because probably the health and safety stuff wasn't there. But a lot of them were forced home, particularly when the pandemic went on, and haven't come back. So we do have a bit of a labour shortage. Okay, so you're thinking, hang on a minute, you're not giving me any good news there. But let's have a think of what's happened. I mean, Ian talked about it. He talked about, some fool blocked the Suez Canal. Okay, spun the ship round sideways. It didn't seem to work. You can do it in a rib, but you can't do it in a sea container. Got stuck. That caused all sorts of problems. Customs delays, the Brexit issue, wildfires in Canada or California, sorry. All those things have caused problems, when the wildfires went on, they came over and bought all the European timber. They wouldn't sell it to us, would they? But so you have all these things happening. Now, there's a few other stats. Now, these will frighten you. Before I give you some good news, hopefully. Average material costs across the sector were about 23-24% higher than they were in August last year. That's a big jump, isn't it? Oh my word, should I be a developer? Should I panic? Run for the hills. There's hills behind me. You can't see them. It's all dark out there tonight, actually. We're on top of a hill here, but there's a hill down. You can run down the hill, that's for sure. And, that sort of reporting is difficult, but it's an interesting thing. Anyone heard of Turner and Townsend? They're project managers, very well-renowned construction people. And I picked up a quote from them, and they suggested that tender prices, so this is the overall tender prices, could be 10% higher at the end of the year. Well, that's not bad. 10% higher. That's not 23-24%. This is tender prices. And this sort of starts me to lead on to something I'm going to talk about in a minute. And also I read another stat, and it said, this was from the Construction Leadership Council, quite well-renowned body, and they said that their main concern was the lack of HGV drivers. Well, they've probably all gone off to drive the fuel tankers, and then they'll be back. But they said that was the most pressing concern. Now, those things are going to get sorted out. Those things will level out, okay? That spike that we've had, and I think I said, it was earlier this summer, but you compared to last year, that spike in June 2021, that's not going to happen again. We're on the downside of that. The Suez Canal, from best of my knowledge, is not blocked anymore. Yes, we still have some labour problems. Yes, we still have some people trying to get back up to efficiency. But these factories haven't shut down. Yes, we have some Brexit issues, but people overcome those. People will overcome those. So I think most of these things are relatively short-lived. Okay, relatively short-lived. But what I would say, and we've always said this here at propertyCEO, is you've got to start with a comfortable 20% plus profit on GDV, preferably 20 to 25, because that should give you some coverage. That should give you some coverage should these things happen. But let's get it into perspective, okay? Write these down. Grab a pen and paper. I'm going to give you some numbers, okay? Write this down. Let's assume you had a gross development value of £1 million, okay? Write down £1 million. And let's assume you're making 20% on that 200, so your costs were 800,000, just broadly, okay? So let's assume you were going to buy something for 300 and your construction costs are 350, and there's about 150 of interest and other fees, broadly, okay? So your construction costs are 350,000 out of the 800. And bear in mind that materials are probably half of that or less, okay? So they could be around 175,000, okay? That's only 21% of the overall costs, 21% of the 800,000. So it's a relatively small percentage. And let's say material costs were up by 20%. Those are some of the headline figures. Headline figures that the certain people in the industry put out there. But Turner and Townsend are saying, well, hopefully an overall tender increase by 10% by the end of the year. But let's say it was 20%. Okay, that's 35,000. I hope you're writing all this down. 175,000 is material costs. If that goes up by 20%, that's £35,000. If the overall construction costs go up by 10%, well, that's still £35,000. Now, that's only a 4%, just over a 4% increase. And that would take your profit, you can work this back later, down to about 16.5% if you started at a solid 20. That's not bad, is it? So your 200 still makes £165,000, even when material costs have gone up. And what if actually the material cost, went up by 20%? Well, that still takes you down to a 13% profit of 130,000. Do you get my point here? Is that this scaremonger, oh my word, 20%, this, it's is a proportion. Yes, it's something you have to take into consideration. But if you're running a project properly and you're starting with a solid 20%, you're still going to make a 16 or 17% profit at the end of it. So you've got to get it in perspective, okay? And with that as well, you've also got to have alternatives. Now, the construction industry is renowned for getting around these problems. It's like people talk about modern methods of construction, and as if it's something brand new. People that come into this industry go, oh, I've heard about SIPS panels. They sound fantastic. Modular construction, it's the brand new thing. It's not. It's been around 20, 30 years. We could never make it cost effective before. But you need to know what alternative options are out there, and consultants are good at that. So if there is a shortage of a certain material, can they get around it? Okay, that's important, and they will do. Consultants will do. They'll work with that. They're ahead of you probably out there. One thing I would say though, and I think this is important, be flexible with your contractor. If you've got a contractor on a fixed price lump sum, to some extent you've got them nailed. You've got them nailed down. But just if there's a problem, they'll be looking to claim that money back. So actually, if it's completely unforeseen, take a bit on the chin yourself. Work with the contractor, maybe meet them halfway. I think that's important. And be careful as well. If you're putting tenders out there at the moment, the contractor is going to price in risk. Much better to work with the contractor, maybe do some open book stuff. Maybe say, look, okay, don't price in risk, work on those material prices, and I'll work with you should they go up. I'll meet you halfway. Think about things like that. Now, for a lot of you, and we know a lot of people that watch Open Door Show are relatively new. We've got quite a lot of our students on here. They're on the start of their journey in construction. Some of them are out there maybe tendering, but the majority are not. And the majority of you perhaps listening to this evening, if you're new to us or you haven't started development, are thinking about going on a development journey. So think about when your project's going out to tender. It's probably not today for most of you. It's probably quite a few months away. Well, things will level out. And ultimately, so what? So what if the prices go up by 50%? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if construction prices go up by 70%. Doesn't matter. Why not? Because things level out. We have to sell the things for more money. We have to buy the land cheaper. That's just the way it works, and it's like anything, isn't it? If you want something, but the price to build that has gone up, for raw materials, and some raw materials will run out in this country. If you look how we form plaster, if you look at masonry and all those things, and look at the green issues that we're trying to do, we're always sourcing new materials in this country. So there's always going to be an adjustment. So always be thinking about that. It's not a reason to run for the hills. It's not a reason to panic. And particularly when you think about those numbers, and hopefully you wrote some of that down, the construction is a relatively small percentage. The materials are a relatively small percentage of the overall cost, about 20%. So it's only adjusting your profitability by about 3.5. Yes, you don't necessarily want to drop that, but if you make 200,000 or it drops to 165, well, maybe that's a bad day at the office, but that's not a bad day at the office, is it? That's what I'd say. So get it in perspective. Don't go back to scaremongering, get it in perspective, and just think about what the real issues are. There you go. There's my little sort of rant and a rave and that. So please pop any questions in the chat box, and we will try and answer them. I see some already in there. If you've got any more about anything I said, pop it in, and Ian and I we'll do our best to try and answer them. Ian, what do you want to start with? You've got a few questions in there. I can see. Do you want to put one?
We have got some questions come in. Let's have a look. I've got one here from. Very good, by the way. I enjoyed your little rant. That was excellent.
Thank you very much.
No, pleasure. From Katya, and Katya says, "Good evening." Good evening, Katya. What types of development do you see as the most successful for first-time developers? Okay, so first-time developers, yeah, you want to start ideally, I think, with something small, and you want to kind of reduce the risk as far as possible. I think the perceived wisdom, certainly our perceived wisdom, is that because you've got kind of a lot of gears meshing together when you first start out, that making the project a relatively small scale, perhaps even compared to what you might want to do a bit later on, is going to play to your strengths. The team will be working together for the first time. You'll have a relationship with a commercial lender and other private investors for the first time, and you're doing it for the first time. So makes sense for it to be as low risk as possible. I'd say, and you've heard us say this before, I'm sure permitted development is the way to go to try and remove the planning risk. We want to basically dodge a bullet on the planning risk because it can catch you out. And even though there are some timescales in particular that are associated with getting planning permission, yeah, that can sometimes disappear pretty quickly, and there's not a lot you can do about it. Whereas with permitted development, you certainly have there's less things that the council can kick back on, and you've certainly got less risk. So I think the other thing I'd say is that once you get going in development, you don't always have to get bigger. In fact, a lot of developers, and I think it's a pretty sensible strategy, is to kind of find their level and then just kind of rinse and repeat. If you're looking at smaller deals, and I think particularly if you're looking at things like I was talking about earlier, kind of brownfield site conversions, then there's a lot of them, and the big developers aren't interested because the projects are too small. So if you can develop a bit of a niche doing those, there are plenty of opportunities out there. And yeah, you stay at the low end of the scale, and that reduces your risk. It means you typically can get in and out of projects a bit more quickly. But certainly for a first-time developer, yeah, I would say small scale and try and go for permitted development. There we are, Katja. I hope that helps.
Okay, whilst I was ranting away, Rory said excellent tips, and Tom says words of wisdom once more. And Tom also has a question, so let's do Tom's question, because he thinks my words were of wisdom, or it could have been yours about the news. Who knows? What Tom says: do you think material prices will ever come back down again? Tom, that's a great question. What I can tell you, it's like anything in this world, that they don't come down as quick as they go up, okay? And because that's just the way it is. And fuel prices will be the same. My son was chatting today, and he had to get some fuel because we're down here in the West Country. He'd come down in his car, and I know he said he had to go and pay £1.79 a litre. He says it's the most expensive he's ever paid on a motorway fuel station. Will that come down that quick? Probably not, will it? But it will ultimately, okay? Now, it's all supply and demand. You know, as soon as there's a run on something, you know, if you've got sheets of plasterboard stacked in your garage, you'll be selling them on the plasterboard black market, and I'm sure there is one, for whatever price you want to sell them for. And of course, you know, that's the way it goes. But what happened is someone breaks rank, you know, so that it almost seems like there's a cartel out there. But it's a bit like the fuel, isn't it? What happens? The supermarkets break rank. You know, Sainsbury's and Tesco, they suddenly lower it. So Shell and Texaco or whoever, others are available, of course, would then lower theirs in turn. So I think the same with materials. You know, what you're going to get is if the material prices are genuinely down, let's say the plasterboard per sheet has come right back down, but you still got Jewsons and you know, whoever out there selling it at an inflated price. Well, that locals builders merchant who thinks, well, I'm going to want to actually get a bit more business back, they're going to reduce it down. The others will follow suit. So it does take a bit of time for someone to break ranks and do it. You know, I would imagine they would all love to be together in a cartel and all work like that, but the world just doesn't. So the competition comes back in. So I think they will come back down, Tom. And I think the reality is, you know, we talk about different materials. So people go, well, forget it then. I'll do something different. You know, brick and block was a great one. Bricks over the years have always been in short supply, on and off, still work the same. Well, we build something different. So, you know, I think that's the way people work on it. Tom, there we go. Hopefully that answers the question. Can I pick up another one about materials, Ian? Can I do 2 questions in a row? Is that allowed?
Oh, go on then. Okay. Seeing as you're on holiday.
Because it sort of leads into Karen's question. Good evening, Karen. She never said the words of wisdom, but I'm still going to answer her question. She says, how can we specify different materials? Because I just talked about this. Surely if something needs to be built from concrete, then that can't be changed for strength reasons. Well, it can, Karen. That's the thing. You know, concrete isn't the only material you can build out of something that's going to be pretty strong. You can build it in steel, you can build it in timber, you can build it in some composite material, okay? Lots of different materials out there. You can build houses out of straw if you really want to. You know, go back to the 3 little pigs and all that type of thing. But people do build houses out of straw. It is possible, quite thermally efficient, I understand. Wouldn't particularly want to live one myself, but there you go. So the consultants, they're a clever bunch, Karen. They really are. And if you're working with a bunch of consultants and there is no cement, okay, we've had that in the past. Well, then if we need to do a frame building, we're going to look at a steel building, and vice versa. If there's a shortage of steel or steel's gone up, okay, there is steel in concrete, but the material volume is not as much as a steel frame building. It's more about concrete. So I'll do that. Well, you might say, well, there's a shortage of steel and concrete, Richie. Get out of that one. Okay, well, I'll do it in timber frame. Okay. There might be certain buildings that I'm maybe going to struggle with, but what I can tell you is consultants are always looking at efficiency as well. So you can actually, if we said there was a shortage of timber, which clearly there is, well, you can have a solid timber joist. Or have you all seen out there? Give me a hands up if you've seen this. I'm sure people have this sort of these open timber joists where you've got a bit of timber at the top, bit in the middle, and in between you've got a zigzag bit of steel frame. Anyone seen those, like an open joist? Yeah, a few hands gone up. Solomon's seen it. Well, at least someone's seen it. That's good anyway. I want a few more hands up. Thank you very much. So, yeah, that is just an efficient way of building. So these things are out there. So Karen, yeah, no problem at all. Lots of opportunity. Ian, what's next?
Wow, Three Little Pigs. I didn't realise that was going to be coming up tonight. That's straight out of the Structural Engineer's Handbook, obviously. Right, we did have a question, which I've now lost. Here it is. It's from Will. Good evening, Will. And Will asks, what can you do with light industrial B1C now? Anything under PD? I know you can demolish, I think, but not sure. Well, okay, so light industrial, there's a bit of a roller coaster ride. Back in the day, we used to be able to convert light industrial buildings up to 500 square meters. Last September, that disappeared. But then light industrial, along with lots of other buildings, got reclassified under the new super use class E. Then from 1st of August this year, we've got the right to be able to convert all Class E buildings, which obviously now includes light industrial, into residential. So that's using, just to make things confusing, another class. This time it's a permitted development class called MA. So there is a PD class called ZA, which enables you to knock stuff down basically and rebuild it. It is technically possible to actually convert it, but you need to go through a rather convoluted planning kind of route that involves a kind of thing called a fallback position to be able to do that. And in any event, ZA has quite a large number of kind of aspects to it that require consent from the council. So that I would say is probably in the too difficult pile. We don't really need that now because we've got Class MA, and again, it's going to normally be quicker and cheaper to convert the existing rather than knock it down and start again. So yeah, light industrial is now back on the menu, and better still, actually, we're able to convert up to 1,500 square meters now instead of the 500 that was there before, and that's probably going to see you right for about 32 flats. So quite a big scheme you could get out of a 1,500 square meter building. But yeah, light industrial's back on the menu. Hope that helps.
Karen said, thank you for my answer, not my answers, well, our answers. Thank you for our answers in terms of material options. And by the way, I thought your words were of wisdom. There you go. Look at that. It's not bad, is it? She agrees as well. Thomas's question. Hello, Thomas. He says, hi, Richie. There's a T in Richie as well, Thomas, but I will answer. It's R-I-T. Look, it's on the screen, Thomas, so you can't make that mistake, can you? It's got no T in Richie. It's unbelievable. I used to have these arguments with people. They used to say, yeah, but surely you're a Richard. You were christened as Richard. I went, no, I'm Richie. Someone had a bet with me once. I think they had a 20 quid bet and they lost it. And I said, well, surely I know what's on my birth certificate. I'm Richie with a T. Anyway, hi, Richie, without a T. My question, I'm not going to bang on about this T not being in there, Tom. I'm not going to mention it anymore.
Don't mention T, yeah. There's a T in Richie. Is it a tea and biscuits? But no, let's not go there.
No, I don't know what you're talking about now. Okay, my question is about working out GDVs at the moment. Prices have increased a lot in the past 6 months, but the data we use is not relevant to this market we're in. No, tricky, isn't it? Meaning that it's very hard to get the GDV where we need it. But we are seeing when properties are coming onto the market, they are refurbished, they are getting record prices in the road. Sorry, how do we predict this? There you go, Thomas. There's the challenge for entrepreneurs, because that's what we are. We're entrepreneurs, we're business people, and it is difficult to predict it, okay? And there is no certainty. But what I would say is don't get sucked along with the hype. This is the other end of your cost spectrum where you can get sucked along with what's going on. Okay, we talked about a spike in material prices. Would you perceive this? You've got to make your own mind up on this. My opinion, okay, for what it's worth, is there's a spike in prices. Okay, the house prices, again, it's hype. There is a backlog that's gone, been going on. There's pent up demand. We talked about that quite a few times on recent shows. We've had press articles about it. Massive pent up demand in lockdown because people still need to move. So that spike in demand is there. Fueled as well, isn't it, by the Chancellor's come out and obviously they stopped the stamp duty. Well, that's all gone now. But did that not cause a spike? Of course it did. People wanted to save money. And then sort of with that, it gets its own momentum. I'm damn sure, Thomas, there were people that moved that didn't really want to move, but thought, I'm going to get a lot of money for my house, I'm going to move, only to realize they had to go and pay more money to get something else. But bizarre. So I think that spike is relatively short-lived, okay, as a spike. Not saying that house prices won't go up, okay, because I do think, we talked about it earlier, Ian talked about it in the news, 300,000 homes, that we got to be delivering that. We're nowhere near it. So there is a lack of supply. So lack of supply does mean that, you should get the prices for the properties you sell. But my point, I think here, Thomas, is be a bit conservative on that end of your calculation. So when you're trying to work out the GDVs, don't work on today's hype. Try and this, you just got to do this yourself. You've got to take a view of talking, not only working out your own numbers, looking at it pre-spike, pre-pandemic spike, okay, talk to a lot of agents, see what those agents say, and then you're going to do the tricky thing, which is form your own opinion, but be slightly conservative on your GDV, okay, slightly pessimistic on your construction costs, subject of tonight's show. Where are you sitting then? Are you at a comfortable 20%? If you are, well, then go for it. And if you get more, that's great, okay, but don't kid yourself that today's prices, today's spike is the coming of a deal. That's the deal. Only works on this massive spike because everything else is smashed in the street. If you're lucky enough to get that, then you are exactly that, lucky enough to get that. But don't rely on that. That would be my thoughts there. Hopefully that helps. Ian, what's next?
Fantastic. Got a question here from, I think it's pronounced Sade. Good evening, Sade. Do tell me if it's not pronounced Sade. Do you hold your properties in lots of different companies? Okay, so when we do a development, typically we'll be setting up a new company to do the development. It's called a special purpose vehicle, SPV. And basically your commercial lender's almost certainly going to insist that you do that because it's nice and clean. There's no baggage, there's no other directors, there's no history to it. And then basically all the contracts, all the transactions are going to flow through that SPV. And then at the other end, after all the business is done, and all of your flats or whatever it is you're building have been sold, then obviously the profits then get taken out of the SPV and it gets closed. Now, if you're sort of if you're building to sell, then ultimately the SPV would typically close down and you do another development and start a new SPV. If you're going to hold the property that you built, you're doing kind of build to rent or whatever, then you've certainly got some options. You could potentially keep it in the same SPV. You may certainly be able, I think there's a number of reasons why you might want to move it into a different structure, a different limited company. That is exactly the point when you have a conversation with your accountant, and probably a property accountant, who will be able to advise you the best way of being able to do that. And in fact, if that is your strategy, I would absolutely make sure you have that conversation before you start a project, because so much of what happens in the world of tax and accounting, you need to get right out of the blocks. Otherwise, you can't unfortunately change things retrospectively if you find out you should have done it a different way. So there's definitely some options there, but do make sure that you talk to your accountant before you kick things off to make sure that you've got it right straight out of the blocks. There we are, Sade. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, Adam's question. Adam's next. Good evening, Adam. Anyway, Adam says, I'm just starting to think about getting into development after being a landlord for many years, but all this material stuff scares me a little. Do you think I should delay my start of my development journey until things settle down a little? No, Adam, come on, crack on with it, my son. Look, Definitely, there's no reason to hold back at the moment. In terms of if you're starting your development journey, well, it's probably going to take you 6 months. You're not going to learn development in a few weeks. So it'll take you probably 6 months to get trained. That's how long we take to train people, Adam. Okay. And let's assume, within 3 months you're out looking for deals. Well, the chances of you finding a deal straight away are going to be quite slim because it's quite hard work, as I'm sure you are well aware. But let's say you find a deal within 6 months. Well, it probably takes you 3 months to actually negotiate the legals and see your way through that. So now we're at 9 months. And then you've got to design and tender it. So you're probably not actually going out to tender for 12 months. I think this might have settled down a little bit in 12 months, Adam. Okay, a little bit more predictability. I said anyway, often we only can look a couple of months ahead, but Turner and Townsend's projection of 10% increase in tender prices by the end of the year. Well, look, Adam, you're going to be 9 months, past that, so you'll see where that is. So you'll know before you start that journey, and you'll certainly know before you probably make your purchase. So I wouldn't delay that. I mean, there are always reasons not to do something. I can go back in this industry and I could always find lots of reasons why you shouldn't become a developer. But let's go back to what I was talking about earlier. Let's go back to those numbers. Construction material prices. Oh my word, all this scaremongering, Suez Canal, some idiot blocked that, lorry drivers all over the place, blooming Brexit, whatever that was about. We can't get any materials and the construction costs have gone up by 20%. Oh my word, the world's ending. And the worst, it's chipped you £35,000. You're still making £165,000 on a bad day. Adam, what are you waiting for? Get stuck in. That would be my view. Get stuck in. I don't know if any other business on a bad day can give you those sort of returns. Let me pick up another one here because I'm in a bit of a flow.
I've noticed.
This very technical here. Look, AJ says, my planning is requested for an EPDM roof. That's like a rubber polythene roof type of system. I can't think exactly what that stands for. Ethylene, propylene, something or other. Today I came across a fiberglass flat roof system at the NEC in Birmingham. The quality of the fiberglass is looking good. Well, it's good product, okay. If the price is good, would I be allowed to change the material when it comes to building control when I put in planning for EPDM? Okay, let's not get confused, AJ, with planning and building control. Let's assume they don't even speak. It's totally irrelevant. So from a planning perspective, though, there could be an aesthetic reason why they want to see that. I doubt it, because you can actually have a rubber roof of some description, basically looking exactly the same as fiberglass, because you can color the fiberglass, you can have what you want. So I think from a planning perspective, I don't think that would be an issue. Check with your planning consultant if there was some reason why it needed to be that. So that shouldn't be a problem. From a building control perspective, they don't really care, okay, as long as it meets building regulations. Now, there's nearly no regulation there other than this thing's got to be waterproof. This isn't the insulation. This is a waterproof layer. A fiberglass roof can be completely sealed. So it's not like a fiber roof, an asphalt roof. That's what I was trying to think of, but I couldn't think of it in time, but I've got it now, asphalt roof. But what I would say, the one person you do definitely want to check, particularly if you've got a flat roof, is your warranty company, okay? Check with them, AJ, because a lot of warranty companies don't like flat roofs. They may insist that it's a rubber roof. No reason why. I think a fiberglass roof is as good as a rubber roof. Done properly, it's as good as a rubber roof. They probably want to have a recognized system. They probably want to have a recognized installer. So providing you can show them that, I would imagine they tick it off. But it's your warranty company I think you need to check with. Ian, what's next?
Fantastic. Well, I can't promise anything quite as technical as that. I've got a question here from Peter. Good evening, Peter, who asks how does a joint and several guarantee work? Okay, so quite common, particularly with personal guarantees and so on. So basically, if you're assuming that there's, let's just say, two business partners, equal share in the property development business, and you're giving a guarantee, then basically, if you've got a joint and several guarantee that you're giving the bank, then basically it means that the bank can chase either of you for the money. So you might be thinking, well, if it was, we'll say Peter and Paul, and we say, well, that's okay. We each owe 50% each. The bank won't view it that way. They will look at Peter, they'll look at Paul, and they'll try and work out who is it easier to get the cash from. So if Peter's got loads of money in the bank and Paul hasn't, and in fact he's skipped the country already, then they're going to go after Peter, not just for his 50, but for the entire 100. So it's then down to poor old Pete to chase after Paul, try and find him and get the money out of him. The bank doesn't really care. It's got its pound of flesh directly from Peter. So that's how joint and several works. Yeah, you need to be very much aware of that, but it is par for the course when you're in partnership like that, and putting in guarantees and securities with other organizations like banks. So there you go, Peter. Hopefully that explanation helps.
Okay, Damien's question. Hello, Damien. Good evening. Nice to see you. Hopefully, Damien was one of our students on our live Q&A this morning. He was complaining about the light. He said I was in the dark. So, Damien, is this better for you this evening? It's only the contrast because it was light outside. Now it's dark outside the cottage here. I think it's probably okay. Anyway, as long as you're happy, that's the main thing. Damien's question: what do you do when your utility consultant has ordered fiber data cabling and your contractor has installed Cat6 copper cabling? What do you do? Well, run around and panic to start with, and then once that's all calmed down, look. So, Damien, it depends. If the contractor, much better, needs toning down a bit. What, the lighting needs toning down a bit? Okay, turn the lighting down a little bit. I can do that. We have the technology. There we go. That's just toned down a little bit for you, Damien. Hopefully, you're happy.
I can't do that. How'd you do that?
I've got controls. Okay, so I think here, this perfect, he says now, he says perfect, but I think you missed the P off, Damien. So in terms of the question here is, just put the P in, perfect, is in terms of the Cat6 copper cabling, did the contractor make a mistake? I'm assuming that's what you're saying. So if your utility consultant has specified, okay, fiber, that was in the tender, and the contractor has now installed Cat6, well, this is the contractor's fault. So you have the ability to actually get the contractor to strip all that out and reinstall fiber. Obviously, clearly, fiber is going to be much faster than Cat6. What I would then, so let's first of all, are you contractually in the strong position? Contractor's design item, he said. It's always useful when you put follow up. Okay, but what about a performance spec? So if it was the contractor's design item, who specified fiber? So was that part of a performance specification at the beginning of the contract? So if you've got a contractor's design element, you should have, and this is applied to anyone out there, a mechanical and electrical consultant on board, okay, who is specifying what you need in terms of either quality or material. So in this case, your consultant should have specified fiber if that's what you want, okay, if that's what you want for the speed for your end users. Presumably it's a residential scheme, so you want fiber in there, okay, so you can sell the flats with fiber. So provided you specified that and your contractor has then done a design item and put in Cat6, then you've got to come back. Now there is lots of question marks here. Did your design team, presumably you've got your M&E consultant, approve that, or did they not see it and they just let it pass? Did you approve that by mistake because you didn't really spot it and you didn't pass it back to your consultant? So if no one's commented and the contractor had submitted that, then the ball falls a little bit in your camp to an extent. If you were silent on it and there were some emails and you were silent, you maybe have some comeback. It's probably a point of negotiation. I'm assuming you're at the stage where you can't start stripping out all the Cat6 because it's probably plastered and all sorts of problems. So what I would now get back to is actually understand. So I would have my M&E consultant, on board now to say, is the Cat6 a problem? Will it do what I need to do? Will it chip my sale values? Will it still perform? I'm assuming if it's residential, it will probably be fine. It will probably be fine. But get someone to confirm that to make sure there's no compromise in your sale values. Assuming that's the case, then what you can do, if you've got some areas of grey, is probably sit down with the contractor and see if you can negotiate, okay? So you said communication breakdown, genuine error. Yeah, look, I don't know what else is going on, whether there's other stuff going on with this contractor as well. Is it all in the melting pot? Can you indicate the contractor's a little bit at fault? Is it part of the overall negotiation? That was difficult to say, wasn't it? On all other items in there, maybe you can bring it into that sort of equation. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps. Okay. Shall we Should we try one more?
We'll try one more. Do you want me to do one more, or do you want to do one more?
Well, I've got one here from Will. Let me, because this is an interesting one. And if you want to pick one more, you pick one more. It's up to you. So we're never going to get them all answered anyway. So David says, good contractor, we'll sort it out. Thanks. No problem at all. Well, hopefully you do. Don't hit anyone. That's the best thing. Will says, so are you saying we should now be thinking of projects with 25% minimum profit? Says Will. Will, look, I don't think, I'm pretty certain Will is not a student of ours. We do have a student called Will, but that's not this particular Will I can see here. Will, we guide all of our students to a minimum of 20%, and I always say preferably 20 to 25. Okay, why do I say that? Well, to cover unforeseens. You know, we're talking tonight about material costs. That is unforeseens. You know, these things happen. Life changes. The world changes. We know that. We know these things change. So I'm not saying minimum 25%, but I'm saying it is a solid 20 is a good place to be. Okay, because if you're trying to find everything with a solid 25, you're obviously, you know, you're going to discount certain opportunities. And starting with a solid 20, taking into account material prices, you know, we're talking about, you know, in a way, look at the discussion tonight. Who asked it? It was let me just go back up the list. It was Thomas was talking about GDV values. So, you know, what we've got here, Will, is sorry, just trying to pick up the name. So Thomas was talking about GDVs. We were talking about material costs. So on one hand, you've got the material costs going up. On the other hand, you've got the GDVs going up. So that's a win. That's all right, isn't it? We're stuck in the middle. That doesn't really matter. It's a win-win. Providing the GDVs have gone up more than material prices, happy days. You know, you've got to try and find that happy place in between. But 20%, I say solid 20%, but preferably 20 to 25 if you can get it work, but not a categorical you have to. Have you got a quick one here? Is there a quick one on there, or do we finish on that?
There's a very quick one from Tom. Is this a different Tom? I don't know which Tom this is, but it's he asks, what is a cost consultant? So basically, cost consultant comes up with the price of a project. You might know them better as a quantity surveyor. Basically, you'll have one of those on your professional team. Typically, what happens, you'll be running your numbers initially, but then as soon as you get to a place where you need to firm those numbers up, you will go out and have a conversation with a cost consultant or a quantity surveyor, and then they will go out and get the pricing for you to use in your calculations to see if the deal stacks. Typically, you'll be engaging with them once you know that you've got a deal that on paper looks pretty good, and when you want to get some more accurate pricing. So that is a cost consultant, and I think that's the last question.
Good stuff. Look, we've enjoyed it tonight. Hopefully you have. Please pop in the chat box if you have enjoyed it. You know, be kind to us. Tell us you enjoyed it. Tell us it was great fun. You know, if it wasn't great fun, don't put that in, because I'm going to read some of them out, and I do it quite quickly, so I don't always know what it says. So please pop it in the chat box if you've enjoyed tonight's show. It makes a difference to us because we do these things for free. Next week's show, well, neither of us will have a property CEO background. We're both out on an outside broadcast. We're at the Property Investor Show in XL next week. So anyone wants to come to the Property Investor Show, if you want to come and hear me talk, I'm on stage on the Thursday. No, I'm not on Thursday. On the Friday and on the Saturday, I'll be talking. I'm also going to be involved in a specialist panel talking about development. So you're welcome to come and sit in on that. Property Investor Show next week. Just look it up, Property Investor Show XL. And we'll be there. And obviously next Thursday, we'll be doing an outside broadcast. Might be a bit noisy because we're hoping, fingers crossed if they let us, to actually do it in the main exhibition hall, but people will still be building their stands. Ours will hopefully all be up and sorted. So we won't be there with hammers and things, but that's hoping what we do. So that's the plan, isn't it, Ian?
It is the plan. It is the plan. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Good stuff. Look, we've enjoyed it. Let's see who says what in here. Rory says, always brilliant. Rory, thank you very much. That's kind. Thanks, guys. Educational and fun as usual, says Damien. And Solomon says, thanks, gents. See you next week. Good night. Oh, good night, Solomon. He's got off to bed straight away. That's brilliant. Paul says, I did apologise for joining. I did apologise. I didn't see your apologies. Thank you, Ian and Richie. I didn't see it, but you don't join late next week. Come on, Paul.
There's a comma. There's a comma there. I did. Apologies for joining late.
Oh, I didn't see the comma there. I'm trying to read it quite quickly, but apologies for that. So, Paul, well, we accept your apologies. That's no problem at all. Okay, AJ says, nice one, much enjoyed. Mansour says, it was interesting. Have a lovely and relaxing holidays, Richie and family. Oh, thank you very much. That's to all my families. That's very kind of you, Mansour. Great show, says Dan. Thanks very much. Thank you all. See you next week on our outside broadcast at the Investor Show. Good night.
Good night. Take care.